Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug.Show. My name's Doug Cunnington, and we have kind of a different episode today. I think we can kind of look at it as like niche sites and affiliate marketing 101. And I have a special guest today, Nicole Mays, who pitched the idea to me. And basically, it came through in a very clear way. So we want to talk about the content site creator learning curve, all the things that you need to learn before you even start writing one word. So I realized that after something like 400 episodes of the Doug Show here, a lot of times I just jump right into advanced topics, even if I'm conscious of, filling in gaps here or there. I try to help people define the technical jargon that we use, but a lot of times I forget and I just jump into a conversation. I've been doing this for almost 10 years at this point. So I realized, because Nicole emailed me, that maybe we're due for an episode like this. So we're going to go through a few areas here. We're going to, number one, learn a little bit about Nicole and how she ended up talking to me at all. And then we're going to go into some of the different topic areas that she found a little confusing, coming in with what I think is virtually no knowledge about affiliate marketing. And then Nicole has a handful of questions for me. So those are going to be the three sections today. Nicole, thanks for shooting me an email. How's it going today?
It's going great. And thanks for having me.
So Nicole, tell us a little bit about yourself, just sort of like the 90-second sort of summary, and then we'll dive into some details. You have a very interesting background.
Okay. So I have just come off a stint of doing pretty much just dishes and laundry for like 21 years. I stayed home with my kids and it was hard, super duper hard. Just a heads up if any of you are thinking of doing that. It's good, but it is hard. And before that, I was actually in the .com world a little bit. And I was just thinking this morning about it, and I worked at hotjobs.com, and it was right when cell phones started having different rings. And I remember we weren't supposed to have our cell phones on, but we'd have our cell phones on so that if someone called you and you had like a cool new ring. And I just thought your audience is probably thinking, oh my God, anyone would think that a cool ring was good, or I don't know. I don't know if you get what I'm saying, but so I worked at Hot Jobs for a little while. Then I was in travel, and then I had my children, and I modeled throughout my time with my children, just part-time freelance. And then I decided it was time for me to go back and start earning some cash, which I pretty much had done very little of. And my husband's been working the whole time and supporting us. And I started listening, I believe it was to Niche Pursuits that I listened to first. And I literally had no clue that people were making money off websites. I don't know how I never put it together that the ads that I thought were a pain in the ass were actually making someone money, but they, of course they are. So I was blown away. And this was just in May of this year. So I've been ravenously consuming all of the information that I can since then. And all the while realizing that I don't need more information. I need some kind of smart scale for the information, because it's just so much bigger than I ever expected. As far as it's just like a fractal. It reminds me of a fractal. Right. Every little thing you learn about, there's the plugins. They're a fractal because there's all these different plugins, and there's a little capitalist society around the plugins where you have to buy stuff or don't buy stuff. And it's shocking to me how big the topic is.
Yeah, everything gets so complicated. There's all these little kind of subcultures that I'm in. So the personal finance area, and then beer brewing as well, and beer judging. Mm-hmm. And there's whole communities that they get together and they talk about it for a whole weekend and go on retreats, and there's a whole thing and a whole vocabulary and community that we don't even know is out there. So You found Niche Pursuits. What brought you to that show, that podcast? Do you remember?
I honestly don't remember. Okay. I don't remember, because I like podcasts. So I'd seen the passive income and niche this or affiliate that. And I always just thought, that's a bunch of crap. That's just kind of the idea. And for whatever reason, when I started listening, I was like immediately realized it wasn't crap just because the intelligence of the guest and the host. And it was this new host guy. I think his name's Brandon or something. Okay. He's awesome. He's a fantastic journalist. But I realized that these people talking were intelligent, and that got me hooked because I was like, oh.
Okay. Got it. And that parallels like pretty close to like how I got into it. So I found Smart Passive Income in 2013, which I haven't listened to that show in a while. I think it's still going strong, but same deal. I think I probably saw similar shows or similar like make money online topic areas.
Right.
I never paid attention. And then after listening to a handful of podcasts, I was like, well, I have to check it out. And then I think I went down, a similar route as you with all these details, trying to figure out, what the hell, like, am I supposed to spend time on? What's important? It sounds like everything's important, but it's really not. So now before we get into the weeds here, you mentioned that you grew up in Alaska, and I visited a couple times. I had a great road trip with my parents a couple years ago, and we actually drove from Colorado and got to spend, I think we were up there for about 3 weeks. There's a little drive time to get up there, and it was fantastic. So can you tell me what it was like growing up there? How long were you there? What cities were you in?
I was in Homer, and you were probably there because most people who drive up, it's the end of the road kind of. And I was there from age 8 to 18, and I just absolutely loved it. I had come from New Mexico, and it was one of the first states that had legalized weed. So I forget that I'm like publicly talking, but anyways, someone who was close to me wanted to be there for that reason. So we moved up there, and I just absolutely loved it. And I feel like something about growing up in that kind of nature where you can't escape it. It's just so beautiful in your face all the time. You're not bigger than it ever. And you're just always, I feel like it impacts you in an unusual way that I didn't quite understand until I was grown up and people started telling me like, that's weird. How'd you think of that? How'd you notice that about that tree? And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. And one thing, I thought I would have a hard time with like very long nights in the winter. And it turns out it actually doesn't bother me. I never lived that far north, but I lived in Bozeman, Montana, which, coming from Atlanta where I grew up, Bozeman, it's much darker. And I guess you don't have to disclose where you're at now, but like you're kind of a northern latitude. So you have like some short days in the in the winter, and then the long days in the summer. So in Alaska, did that impact you at all, or it's just what you got used to and it's no big deal?
I honestly think that is freaking brutal. That's like one of my, I'm in the Boston area now. And so that's one of my main things is that I have to do like a full court press on depression once it starts getting the shorter days. And I, of course, didn't have any awareness about that growing up, which is another good thing about the internet is that kids now, they know, like if you're depressed, that there's some reason and there's things you can do. But I didn't know. But yeah, I think it's incredibly difficult. And now there's so much more knowledge. Most people in Alaska have like full spectrum lights in their houses. It's just something you have to absolutely pay attention to if you're someone who's sensitive to it, which it sounds like you're not. So that's incredible. I can't even believe that some people aren't, but I know that some people just, they're just as cheerful on a day when there's like 3 photons out in the air and, compared to one where they're like basking in it. So, but that's not how I am. And I'm glad I know that now. I'm glad everyone knows that now.
Yeah. And it's like you said, it's much easier to get the lights and stuff and even just the lighting kits because I'm in a basement. So I have like a bunch of lights around me. So it's really easy. Like in the winter, I'm down here, I can just like turn on one of the lights, bring it really close. And then it's like me being outside basically.
Yes.
That said, side story, we were just visiting Montana, and it was cloudy and rainy for a couple days. And in Colorado, like we brag that it's you get 300 sunny days a year. But what I realized, I have a ton of freckles. I am fair skinned. I sunburned. Like the sun it's too much here, and I realized that I maybe should be in a cloudier place. And I'm like, I was complaining that it's too sunny in Colorado. The weather's great almost all the time. It almost never rains, or if it rains, it just gets sunny again later. So it's kind of a dumb thing to complain about, but it's too sunny in Colorado. So
I do think people are wired for certain climates.
Yeah.
Like I if you're going with that instinct of like, my skin doesn't seem to like it, something about it doesn't feel right. I really do think that people are wired in different ways for that, because there were plenty of Alaskans who were happy as clams, like shoveling in the dark, so.
Yeah, and we could do a whole show talking about Alaska and other stuff, but we'll shift over. So you did, it sounded like freelance modeling for a handful of years. So can you talk a little bit about that? Just any broad experiences or anything?
Yeah, so the kind of model that I was, which if you're, a woman or a man, actually, I forget, they have the men ones too. If you're any kind of standard size, especially if you're a standard size 8 for women, and I forget what the men's is. It's like a 41 regular or something like that. If you're a standard size person, then you can be what's called a fit model. And you basically are just like a live mannequin that the samples for the clothes are developed on. So you stand there and give feedback and interact with all these brilliant, creative people who are talking about adjustments, and it's a fabulous, high-paying freelance job, and I can't believe how few people at least used to know about it. I think it's a little more common now, but so I did that off and on for years for like, New Balance and stuff like that. But I've kind of aged out, so the only ones that would hire me now at 51 are like in Florida.
Okay, interesting. And then I guess, would you work just with an agent, or would you have like relationships with like the individual companies and then like keep working with them season over season?
Yeah. So it's, if I was working in New York, it's agents, because that's where it used to be where all the fitting was done. But here in Boston, there's just a few companies. And so I knew them and worked for all of them just independently.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah. I had no idea. I didn't even know it existed. But now that you mention it, I'm thinking of like all the like t-shirt brands and like the like online, and you see just like random people, all different shapes and sizes and colors, and it's different now. And I'm sure those are just as hard to get, or you have to be in the right location at the right time, or know the company or something like that. But okay, cool.
That's like a new phenomenon, though. Having those are called print models, and the print models, usually I always joked that you get discovered as a fit model when you're told that you're too short, fat, and ugly to be a print model. It was a joke. I'm sorry. It does not reflect on Doug. I'm older. My taste level is not current. But so like the whole different types of print models, that's totally new. It used to be just that if you were average size, you were going to be a fit model kind of thing.
Got it. Okay. And let's shift. So you were doing some of the freelance modeling, you're raising your kids. Then you're like, I want to earn some money again. Sounds like you're not currently trying to do the modeling stuff. And that probably somehow brought you to Niche Pursuits. It brought you to like my channel in some capacity. And can you talk about that? Like, were you just searching for like how to make money online, or do you even remember how you came across anything?
Gosh, I wish I do remember. I wish I do, but honestly, I don't. I don't remember what the spark was. I just know that the hook was that the people talking about it were actually intelligent. That was the hook to me, because I thought that it'd just be, and then come in and, you can have all this stuff. And,
got it. Yeah. And then are you a YouTube consumer of podcasts, or are you on the audio side primarily?
Audio, usually.
Okay. And then is that how you found my show?
Yes.
Then? Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, well, let's jump into it. So you have put together a very good outline, which we'll share in the show notes so people can check it out. And these look like your own personal notes, just as you were researching and then refined it down to whatever you publish here. Is that right?
Yeah, a little less heavy on the refining part, but yes.
Okay. Yeah. There's some stream of consciousness in here, but it's totally fine. So there's a couple areas, and there's one about vocabulary, which we'll kind of breeze over. I think reading vocabulary wouldn't be as exciting, but you talk about like just a niche in general, like what people are talking about, AI. Plugins, there's actually a pretty long section here, and you've already alluded to it. So with plugins, I'm just a little, I'm imagining you listening to a podcast. You maybe jump in and listen to maybe one of the most recent episodes that had a good, maybe success story headline. And then all of a sudden they're talking about plugins and you don't even know that they're talking about WordPress, maybe. So
exactly.
Yeah. Talk about the plugins just a little bit, and then like how you went about figuring out what the fuck they were talking about.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it, is that I'd hear these people talking and then they'd rattle off like, oh, and then your CEO, and, just be like a little blip of some. And I was like, what is that? He just said, I know it's important, but I don't know what it is. And so plugins really came out of nowhere for me. I just was blown away that there was this whole, I didn't know what they were. Number one, no idea. And so just in case you're listening, the way that I think of them is that they're like a little mini software package that you add on to your software of your website building package. But I want to hear how you define it though, Doug.
I should have thought that you would ask me a question like that, but yes, I would roughly. It's similar to like a browser extension, which people are usually a little bit more familiar with. So yeah, a small piece of software that extends the functionality of like whatever the core piece is. And or whatever the core software is. So it could be WordPress. It could be, I don't use Squarespace, but Squarespace maybe has plugins also. Shopify has plugins. So it's a whole different ecosystem. And I'm sure like other big software packages have them too. You may hear it, phrased differently. So a plugin, or even like a browser extension, or like if you use Google Docs or the Google software packages and everything, there may be like an extension or a plugin that you can lay on top of that. So it extends the functionality. Yeah.
And that alone is a relatively foreign concept for me. It was just because last time I was really into computers and website building and stuff, there wasn't, you had to write HTML. There was none of this like, WYSIWYG, as we called it, the what you see is what you get. So the whole idea that not only can you not write HTML with this program called WordPress, but on top of that, you can add all these incredible layers of bells and whistles and functionality, all while not coding. So, yeah.
And everything's pretty much already done, which is crazy because like you said in the past, we used to have to, we would come at it and think, I have to create like a database of like something so I could display all this stuff. And we were going to try and make it from scratch. And I've talked to people who like, actually not even that long ago, I had a friend who was like, I kind of want to put together I think it was like essentially like a apartments.com type functionality, right? Like searching and like real estate listings and stuff. And it's all like basically all that stuff's already developed at this point. So
yeah, right.
Not that you can't add value, but so many things are already solved. And I'm like, you don't want to spend any time on that. So, okay. And moving on, there is a section of SEO plugins here. So were you familiar with SEO at all before?
I actually was, because I did do like digital marketing and content, and building websites for like the PTO and stuff like that, because I was always a little technically minded. But like I said, it was like, seriously, WYSIWYG was like cutting edge at the time. So, it was nothing like now. So yes, I'd heard SEO, but it had just barely come out then. And I was very intrigued but I got the gist of it, which is you use words that people are looking for.
Yep. And then, like, how do you feel about it now that you're a few months into like learning about this stuff? Are you pretty like, if at a dinner party, if someone's like, I'm into SEO, I don't know anything about it, would you be able to give them like a few minute like rundown of what's important? I won't make you do it.
No, that's all right. That's a good question. I don't think that I'm at the point where I even really know what's important. So that's another thing that kind of the overarching theme of this is like, I tend to be someone who is pretty confident that I can like wrap my brain around something and just roll up my sleeves and like get it done, which is just my personality type. It's not that I can, it's just that I tend to be someone who goes into things like that, like, oh, let's do it, more excitement than knowledge. And that has, with SEO, that has taken me by surprise big time, especially because keyword research and SEO all sound like I can grasp them. I think I know them. But then, so I've bought something like 22 domains, and my domains, a lot of them, probably all of them are just going to be trash, but they are a great map as far as what I didn't know at the time, because even selecting a niche, I mean, I started in May-ish and now it's October. I'm just now realizing how complex the SEO keyword research process is, and that it's not a matter of there not being enough information out there. It's that I don't know enough to know which things are important. So like I need an information limiter. And, I know you have the class, we were talking about that. It's like, I want a professional person to limit the amount of information that I can get my hands on. Because I'll also waste countless hours trying to roll up my sleeves and understand this stuff that there's not enough time in the world for me to understand at this point,
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. Well, and the initial question was like, could you explain some SEO stuff to just a random person that didn't know anything? And your answer is great because you're acknowledging that you don't quite know all the answers. And I run across a lot of people, and actually sometimes these are the noisiest people in like a Facebook group that like they just have the lightest grasp of a concept, but they sound like the biggest expert.
Totally.
And they're so confident, and it's amazing.
Right. And I think that itself is a symptom of not knowing that whole, because I would explain like nobody's business at a cocktail party all about SEO, but the truth is that I just am now grasping how little I grasp it. But I didn't know that a few months ago.
Yeah. So. And it's, people could read this later. I think it's called it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And basically, if you're a beginner, you'll think you're overconfident, essentially.
Yes.
And as you become an expert, you have less confidence because you realize that there's so much that you don't know, and so many things that you thought were true have been proven wrong, and blah, blah, blah. So experts will often it's kind of under, I don't know the word I'm looking for.
Yes. I know what you're saying.
They just don't have the confidence. So it's there's studies on it and stuff. It's very interesting to see in the wild too. So, okay.
Oh, I wish I'd known I know that instinctively, but I think that little Kruger effect that you just described is like the root of a lot of problems for starting out in this content niche thing, especially because I feel like it draws people. And I don't know, because I don't know anyone else doing this but me. But as I said, I like to be overconfident with very little information. But I think it draws people like me who are like, just confident in their ability to understand stuff, Yep. Anyways, we can move on.
Cool. So next thing is themes. So this is one that actually, I think I probably have a couple podcast episodes where I do talk specifically about themes. And this is, such a huge, another big ecosystem of like just an economy of like making money and themes are tough. So I usually, like, my overall guidance is usually just make sure the theme stays out of your way to do the things that you need to do. Can you talk about your experience with researching themes and, browsing through the tens of thousands of themes that are out there?
Yeah, I think that what you just said, like make sure the theme stays out of your way, I don't think I would have understood that because I was missing the piece of information that themes can screw your site up. Like, so, my first chunk of just like bonfire of hours that I spent on themes was just getting the prettiest, fanciest. Because they're incredible, and you could spend hours just looking at them and they're so beautiful. And then I figured out how to get it on my site. And then, 2 weeks later, when I had gotten a little more knowledge, I realized that will make your site super slow. And so any kind of being found is completely erased by all those extra bells and whistles that you don't want. And the same thing with the plugins. And that was another big realization for me, is that that's secondary if you actually want to get found. So I didn't know they could get in my way, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And, you bring up a couple good points, and it can slow your site down. And the bigger piece, let's say you find a theme that does look good and it actually does load pretty fast, but these page builders, I always come out against page builders. Have you heard me rant on that yet?
I thought WordPress was a page builder, isn't it?
So technically WordPress is a CMS, a content management system.
Oh.
And then the page builders, they do have the Gutenberg blocks.
Oh, yes.
That's kind of a page builder, but typically the ones that I talk about, there's one called, I think, Thrive Architect. I think that's what it's called now. It used to be Thrive Content Builder. And then there's another one, I forget the names, Elementor, I think Divi. There's a couple others.
Okay, well, I want to hear this rant then, because I don't know why those are any different. I thought those were just part of WordPress options. So I want to hear the content or the page builder rant.
So, and I think just some of the terminology may be a little bit off. So I think Divi and Elementor, I think they can lay on top of other themes, but they may also have like a core theme, and then the page builder is sort of agnostic. So and they all kind of work a little differently. But the main point is, with the page builders, you can put together these really beautiful websites, and you have a great deal of control over how it looks. There's two big problems. One, or at least for me, two big problems. One is they take a really long time to work with. So if you're not a designer, I'm not a designer, and I don't care too much about it. I just want to get the text on the screen so people can read it. And basically, when you are putting together each piece and building the whole page or the site, you can end up just burning like so many hours. And the really important thing is like getting the content on the page, like get the actual words, right?
Yes.
So if someone is a couple years in and their site's doing great and they need to like rebrand the site and they like want to redesign things, that's cool. If they're doing it for a specific branding reason. But if you're not publishing content and you're messing around with, making the color and the shading just right, that's a waste of time. So that's one. The second part is, if you want to migrate away from that page builder to a simpler theme, let's say there's some reason you want to change themes. Maybe it's cost, because a lot of the themes have recurring annual payments. Regardless of the reason, if you want to migrate from one of the page builders, typically it's filled with like short codes or other artifacts that you have to clean up. So you can't just change themes and everything will work. If you change themes, you end up with all these, like I said, artifacts. So there'll be short codes referring to the old theme. And let's say you have 200 posts on your site, all of a sudden you have to clean up 200 like pieces of garbage from before. So simpler is usually better. And the fact is most traffic on many sites is on a mobile device. So all the bells and whistles are probably going to get in the way anyways.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's exactly it. That's exactly it. I did that exact thing with the big fancy theme that I put on there. And then I realized what I did wrong, took it off. But then there was all these like little sneaky little things still in there that were, I mean, and they were in Serbian too. So that didn't help. But, so I ended up just erasing that whole site and putting a clean one on. But it's so true as far as time vampires. Oh my God. And it's so much more fun to adjust the shadow on an image than it is to write content. It's like way more fun to pick fonts, and to just get the serif or serif or whatever, just how you want it. So yeah,
and
you're right. I wish I'd known to know that was important enough to find a podcast that would say that. I'm sure you've said it 7,000 times, but I just didn't even know how important that was.
Yeah. Well, I can't blame you. You haven't listened to everything yet, but the other hard part is there will be people that just swear you have to use like a certain theme or a certain thing. And usually they're affiliates, so you can't trust what they're saying. So they're going to just sell it. And I mean, I was subject to that, and I like bought one of the content builders, and I was like, yeah, I put the box and the shading and like wasted all this time. And I'm like, this actually looks worse than it did before. I thought it looked better because there were colors and buttons or something. But yeah, once I figured that out and like realized how strong the sales and marketing was from affiliates.
Yes.
In that you can't trust people unless you understand their incentives too. So I am an affiliate for some stuff, but very few things. And as I've done less of it, it makes it even harder for me to like promote something. Cause I'm like, people really trust any recommendation that I make because I don't promote many things.
Totally. I really like how you've been an affiliate for Jasper in particular, because I feel like I haven't listened to all your Jasper episodes, but you've just been like, hey, this is an affiliate opportunity for me. I'm trying it out. And like, it's just, it hasn't been like this is most of the Jasper ones, I don't know if they have a huge affiliate program or what, but they're really like the people are motivated to get you to sign up. So I like how you've done that a little bit more hands off, just kind of like,
Right. Yeah. And that was one that I wanted to, test out. And I'm trying to test out other products too, but it's less, it's a little less interesting. Like eventually, a little background on it. Like the tools have been out for a while, and I know a few of my friends were like, we are making just a shitload of money from this. Like you need to promote this as well. And I was like, it seems kind of crappy. I don't think I'm going to. And I probably left, I'm trying to think how many, I've probably left like tens of thousands of dollars on the table, like knowing how much they've earned monthly.
You're kidding me, just with one software package like that.
It's insane. Yeah. It's very, very profitable. And like, I was in a good position at the right time to have recommended it, but I was like, I don't think it's that good.
Wow.
And I wanted to test it out. So eventually I was like, there's so many people asking, and there's so many people that are telling me that the tools have matured. So I am giving it a shot. I've lost a little momentum, but thank you for the compliment on how I'm approaching that software. So,
and I think you probably got an affiliate like kickback from me too. So.
Oh yeah, cool. Wait, so you tested out.
I tested it out for I think it was like a 10-day sign up, and I canceled on the 11th. I like to do things like that.
Okay.
I just didn't pay enough attention, and then was in it for like $100 or whatever. And so now I have it for one extra month.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you find using it?
Oh, I think it's it's super entertaining for like 10 minutes. And the templates are awesome because the templates have a huge amount of just business education in them. I thought they were the best part of it. And I'm really impressed at how Jasper can make these just like phenomenal word salads. And I wanted to like try and prompt it to say nothing for like 5,000 words. Like I wanted to see if there was a way that I could just keep giving it the prompts to actually talk around something without actually ever conveying any information. To me, honestly, I think it's the opposite of the helpful content, quote unquote. And I'm so sorry, Jasper, because forgive me, I'm overconfident and uneducated. So just take it with a grain of salt, but that's just my take. However, I do think it's a wonderful, wonderful tool if English isn't your first language. That's the first thing that I thought when I was using it. I was like, wow, if I needed, that extra beef in my English in general, this would be perfect because it really does make things like coherent and it's correct and all that good stuff. So.
Yep, and it definitely is much better than some of the first tests that I did a couple of years ago. Not using Jasper, but a different tool where, it was supposed to be really amazing, and I couldn't really get more than like a sentence or two that made any sense. And using Jasper a handful of times, I've been able to really put together some decent content, and then if you go through it and edit it, it's pretty, I guess, passable and acceptable. I think there were a couple more advanced like use cases that I didn't quite figure out, but I think it could be really useful if you could, give it the outline and give it some bullet points of information and then have it, write the narrative and, write all the prose out. That would be really helpful because then you don't have to fill in the sentence structure and then you could just come back for editing. Depends on what you're writing.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But
it strikes me a little bit like adjusting the shadows on an image in a page builder, though. Like it's a lot funner to like fiddle around in there and not really get any content, or I would just find myself going over to the screen and just straight up writing content and not using it. So.
Right.
But yeah.
And what's your like writing background? Did you have a strong, like, I don't know, writing experience in the past or?
Yeah, I like to write. I got to admit.
Okay.
I love it. I've just always journaled and took a lot of courses and all that good stuff. Yeah.
So, okay. So it comes.
But I mean, I think Jasper's a better writer than me because it's not as, convoluted as I tend to be. I think it's got clarity nailed.
Cool.
Just not substance.
Right. Well, I think, the jury's still out. I think maybe you've heard me ask for people from the audience. I want to hear success stories of people are using an AI tool. And to date, I think one person has contacted me. This has actually been a few months ago, but then I haven't heard back from them since they contacted me. And occasionally I hear someone's like, oh, I need to put you in touch with someone. My friend Alex Cooper on WP Eagle, a YouTube channel, he said someone emailed him that had a success story, but he didn't know any other details about it. So I'm still waiting to hear from someone who's like, I'm making a full-time income using AI tools. Usually the success stories that come my way, people are writing their own content and like that's why it's working for them. So
there was an English lady on Niche Pursuits. She has a little tiny sweet voice and English accent, and she used it like all the time. And she seemed totally legit.
Okay. I may, let me know once we finish, let me know what episode that is. I'll check it out and see if I can get in touch with her. Okay, cool. So broadly, are there any other pieces, I skipped over some of the other detail and people can check that out when we link it up. Any other things you want to mention on the learning curve side, anything that jumps out? And if not, we can kind of transition.
Yeah. I mean, I do have something else to mention, but in my Am I talking too much? Because I
No,
tend to. Okay.
no, it's fine. Otherwise, I have to talk. So yeah, you go ahead.
No, but I want you to talk about this. So I'll talk a lot and then I'll stop and you can talk. We'll
Perfect.
do it that way. Okay. I am currently just totally stumped by finding a good niche, which I thought that I had in the bag within 10 days of learning about this. So about affiliate marketing or niche marketing, I'm just totally stumped by the complexity and how hard it is and all of the tools and how much above my head the tools are. I don't know. So I really, like the last couple of days, I've been stumped by it. And this is after I've picked like 17 niches too. This isn't.
Okay.
So I just want to give a heads up to people that like, I think there's a lot more to that than what I thought because I'm 5 months in and I'm kind of realizing that, wait a second, I should probably be really solid on this picking a niche thing before I start investing all this time, you know? So.
Okay. So I have a couple thoughts on that. Number one, and this will be hard for you to take partially, probably.
Oh,
and
great.
we only just met a few minutes ago. So, but after talking to you for a few minutes, I think this could be hard, but it'll be helpful.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm excited.
There's a strong chance your first site is not going to work out really great. So you can still earn money. You can still like get traffic and learn what you need to. But a lot of times, and maybe my first 2 or 3 sites were this way. I did the same thing as you, by the way. I had like 15, 20 domains. Yeah. And most of them were useless. Looking back, it traced along as I understood more.
Yes.
And your first site, you're going to make some mistakes. And probably for all your sites, you're going to make a few mistakes when you look back, think, I could have done that a little bit better. So your first site is probably not going to be as big as you think or hope. Sometimes it is. There's actually a higher percentage than you would think where their first site actually works out pretty well. More often, you'll get started. You'll get some momentum. It'll be a small success, enough for you to think, now I see some things that I don't like that I did, and the next site is going to be the big one. And that happened for me. So like once I like realized a couple of mistakes that I made in some optimization areas that I couldn't easily correct on a site that was already in progress, I was able to like start a new site, and that worked out. You're going to be able to work faster. You won't get hung up on a theme. There's a handful of themes or things like that where the second one or third one will just be easier. So that's one thing. You don't have to the point is you don't have to put too much pressure on your first site because it's not going to be perfect. The second area with selecting, your niche there is you have your list, which is great to have plenty to choose from. My advice has shifted over time. And now I encourage people to go after something they're interested in or they're somewhat passionate about. You don't have to be, super into it, but at least interested. The reason why is it's going to be an up and down situation. Sometimes you're going to hit a snag and you're going to be frustrated and you're not getting the traction that you hope. You want to at least have the interest so that you're not working on something that you just actively don't like or you don't care about.
Right.
And, in the future on your 5th site or something where you like the process and you know what you're supposed to do, then maybe you can, just do something because it looks like a good opportunity and not because you care about it at all. So,
right.
And the good part is you have your list of 17. There's probably, let's say half of them you don't really care about too much. So you've whittled it down. And the thing is, you can still work on each of those topic areas. You just can't do it all at the same time, or you probably shouldn't do it at the same time. So just pick one, move forward, and it's probably going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that leads me to what made me start really cramming some content. And it was something you said. And you know how when you hear someone say something and then 5 minutes later, all of a sudden you hear it from someone else. And it's like, whoa, like I've never heard this in my life. And I just heard this twice in one day.
Right.
But it was so helpful. I wanted to like make a big banner of it, and that was fail fast. And I didn't know that was like a business buzzword. I was so excited, told my husband about it. He was like, please, that's been around for a while, but I hadn't heard it before. But when you said fail fast, it gives me chills even a little bit, because something made me realize it just lined up with what I'm experiencing, which is that what I've been experiencing, which is that there's no shortcuts. You have to go through the process before you even know. And maybe there are shortcuts with those courses, but before you even know how you're not going through the process, right? You have to actually go through the process. So it made me just start slamming some content on there, the fail fast.
Yeah.
Did.
Yep. Yeah. So definitely copy that from somewhere else. I'm sure I heard it from 30 different sources, but I would say anything that people hear me say, I probably copied it from somewhere else. So just everyone keep that in mind.
Yeah, but you said it.
You heard me say it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Okay, cool. So yeah, what else? What else is on your mind? And we could kind of launch in. I mean, you have several questions that you have noted here. So
can I ask the ones about you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right. Can I say one more thing about me, though?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
I hired a boss for myself on Upwork. I just did this last week. And this is another one where I was like basking in my cleverness for like, I still am just a little bit. But because I was on Upwork and I was thinking, I was looking at these jobs, none of which that I want to do. But of course, I was wasting time looking at them. And I thought, or then later on, I was just completely frustrated with myself at like burning another 3 hours doing nothing. And I thought, I need a boss. And so I actually put an ad on Upwork for a boss and hired someone within that day. So now I have a boss. Her name's Zoe. She's 30 years younger than me. And she reads the list that I give her from the week before off back to me. And just that little bit of shame that I have for not doing the list has made, this is the first week I've had her, has made me be way more on task. $15 a week. So I would suggest that.
I've heard it's similar to like I feel like there's some coaching app that is similar to that, and I've heard some friends do that where they were the coach. They're like, hey, did you do whatever you're supposed to?
It's a coaching app with actual people on it, because the people part is the part that would keep me sticking with it.
Yeah, I think so. And I can't remember any of the details, but that's the general idea.
Makes sense.
So that means you're like externally motivated, like you don't want to let people down, right?
I guess I want people to like me and be impressed by me, if you really want to know the inner core raw part. I think some part of that is just in me. Like I can't pretend like it's not there. I'm not someone who could work in a room and never talk to people and stuff like that. So yeah.
Gotcha. Interesting. So it's working out, just knowing that you have the accountability.
Yeah. Just knowing that she's going to be, how about this one? And I'll be like, oh.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay. And then the other part, kind of related to that, have you like thought about joining a mastermind group or putting one together?
Totally, but I don't know how to do it or anything like that. I've heard people mention it on podcasts, and I've been like, I want to be a part of a mastermind group, but I don't really know how to go about it. But I think that'd be ideal. Yeah.
Usually, so I put together mine whenever I got interested in it. And just like you, I just heard people talk about the concept, did a little research, but I just put it together myself. So my previous job was a project manager, so I could run meetings and stuff and organize and keep an agenda and keep people on time and everything. So I think it was like in a forum or something. and pulled together or put out a post and just said, hey, I'm going to put together a meeting and here's the idea. I screened a handful of people and then started the group. The cool thing, if you organize it, typically you can get in people that are better and farther ahead than you, which is great because that's where you can learn a lot. So,
yes. Did that go for a while?
Yeah. So actually the first one went on for maybe only like 6 weeks or so. And then I was very excited with what I was working on. So I did a bunch of shit and then people like dropped off. They were like not interested. They were not committed. And then after that, I've been in a handful of others and some of those have lasted like, 3-4 years, something like that.
Oh, wow. Does that kind of stuff motivate you? Like how, I think you have a really fine grasp on how people can waste their time from listening to you. I think that you really seem to get that. So does that external, like, what are like your equivalents of like currently for where you are now? Like, how do you keep yourself on task?
How do I keep myself on task? That's a good question. So currently the mastermind group situation doesn't work that well for me, but I'm in a different stage. So as far as staying on task, I basically want to be at my desk as few minutes as possible. So is like, if I could just get my work done and then go do something else, that's much better. And it could be playing guitar, working out, walking outside, hanging out, cooking, whatever. So like even something that seems like it should be a waste of time is much better than me down here in the basement by the computer. So.
So you make it so you don't like working.
Well, sort of.
That's super smart.
I do. I like the work that I'm doing. I like to do. But I just know that I'll be happier if I'm away from the computer because I've spent plenty of hours doing things. Right. And then like on the mastermind side, it is great for accountability in a lot of ways. But what I found, because I'm part of a couple like paid communities, and people are very interested, at least in some communities, to like grow their businesses as large as they can. But there's always a trade-off, right? Like if I wanted to do that, I would have to put more time at the keyboard here. But at some point I was like, oh, well, do I have enough money for what I want to do? If the answer is yes, then it means whatever you're doing for money, you should do for free. If money isn't the driver, then you should be doing it for free, or you would do it for free because money is not the thing that you're going after. So anyway, once I realized that, I was like, these mastermind groups often are like people that are trying to maximize the business side of it. And I'm trying to work on the life portion of it, which is different goals, both valid. But I'm like, I don't want to have like a 8 or 9 figure business or whatever other people are going after. That sounds terrible to me. So yeah, my motivation generally to get the work done is to just finish it. Like I am working on stuff that I enjoy, finish it, and then I could go do something else.
Wow. So yeah, you're good at like stepping back and analyzing. I guess you're stepping back and analyzing what is my actual core motive for doing this, and like putting it in its box that like this is where I earn money. Period. This is where I earn money. This is not where I am exploring or like.
Yeah. And I mean, there's some overlap occasionally. But generally, yeah, like the mastermind stuff, I'm not as interested in. There's a couple of people that I talk to occasionally and it's partially business focused, but usually we're friends and we're just talking. So, yeah.
Why are the traffic scores so different between my host? Oh, I know what I was tapping now. Okay. Between my host and Google.
Okay. And so, and you're talking like the analytics, like the visitors to your site.
Yes. Because
Okay.
my recommendation to anyone new is believe your host numbers because it's
Okay.
really discouraging. So I just don't know
Gotcha.
why they're different. Yeah.
So there could be a couple things. I'm not 100% sure. I would actually generally go with the Google Analytics numbers. But it's probably like bots or some other sort of like web crawler situation. So let's say this is hypothetical, but I'm just thinking through it. Let's say Google has some, indexers out there, right? The bots that
Mm-hmm.
go crawl
Mm-hmm.
the internet. Your host may detect those as traffic, and then they count the bots as traffic. That said, Google Analytics will have bots, and there's other
Mm-hmm.
like just not real traffic that shows up on Google Analytics as well. But my hunch is the host is giving like just the raw, like any access to the site, where Google Analytics can give you a little bit more intelligence around it. And you, for example, can filter out any traffic that was only on your site for 1 second or less, because you could kind of assume that that is some kind of a bot, not
Mm.
not a real visitor on your site.
Okay. And yeah, so my host that would answer also why it is that the pages visited are all like the ones that I was on, like the WP admin, right? So
Okay.
it's counting those too, right?
Yeah. So it would count
Okay.
those, I think. Yeah.
Can you break down ultra slowly what the traffic numbers are that matter versus the ones that don't? And this is like hits, clicks, impressions, RPMs, users, views, yada
Okay.
yada.
Generally, I'm interested in, the number of visitors and page views. From the ones you listed here, like impressions, so that'll be on the Google Search Console. And
Mm-hmm.
that tells you how many times your like keyword phrase showed up in the search engine results pages. So if they're in I think either the top 100 or the top 250, I can't remember what the cutoff is, that
Oh.
shows up as an impression. And the clicks are important. Those represent traffic. So if you show up for a keyword phrase as an impression and someone clicks on it, that represents like a conversion. Someone clicked through over to your site and they landed on your site.
And those are
So
always called clicks.
I think so.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Well, in the Google Search Console, yeah,
Yeah.
clicks and impressions, that's what it would be. RPMs, so that is revenue per 1,000 visitors, and that is important from a revenue perspective. And generally you'll see that for display ad revenue. RPMs on eZoic, it's EPMV, so earnings per 1,000 visitors,
Uh-huh.
and M being the 1,000 in Roman numeral. I don't know why they do
Yeah.
that, but yeah. So RPMs, and you can have that number, that metric for affiliate sites as well, but you'd have to often calculate that on your own on the other side. After you know your revenue and the visitors, you could back calculate it. So
I see. So the RPM, EPMV is usually for the ads. If when people are throwing that around, it's usually they're talking about the ads and what money those ads are making,
yep,
not
you
the
got it.
affiliates. Okay.
You got it. And then the other piece that I would keep, you didn't list it here, but like time on page or time on site.
Yeah.
I like to look at that, especially for specific pieces of content. So I could see like people are spending a lot of time on this page, like that's good generally. Or if I see like, it's a very, 30 seconds, a very small amount of time, like maybe that's not the right thing. Or maybe the topic area, just, people get the answer and they bounce off the page, which is fine. Okay.
Yeah. So what is the number that's good? Because I've noticed that those numbers are way smaller than what I would think of as good.
For the RPMs?
Time on a page.
Oh, time on a page. It really, it does depend on the the niche and topic area, but usually I would say like 2 to 5 minutes is pretty good, again, depending on the topic area. So the thing is, like, I think about my own behavior where depending on what I'm looking for, I may Google something, I'll quickly look, and I may be on a page for about 45 seconds because I found what I needed, and then I can go on with my life. And it's rare when I actually read a web page and I'm there for like more than a minute. So that's why I'm like, 2 to 5 minutes. And I see that on my sites, depending on whatever the page is, someone may spend a few minutes there. And I'm like, that's pretty good, especially if they maybe were on, the number of pages per visitor is another metric. And I see that they maybe went to, on average, it's like 1.5. So like a handful of people are reading a couple pages. That's pretty good.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's good to know.
So do you think people, and these are your questions, Nicole. So do you think people who gravitate to wanting to build sites for money tend to be the types who want shortcuts? Because I'm like that, and it's a deficit I want to see. Is that what you said? Deficit that I want to see and acknowledge, and then trick into working for me. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So there are, I think most people, pretty much 100% of people don't want to waste time. And I think sometimes people are not necessarily looking for shortcuts. They just don't want to waste any time. So there are there's a large set of people that are looking for shortcuts, and they will actually sacrifice a lot in terms of quality, even efficiency and effectiveness, just to feel like they're taking a shortcut. And I think that is, that's an issue. But if you come in kind of, like we talked about the failure stuff earlier, basically, I think if you're going to end up wasting a little, in quotes, wasting a little time, making mistakes and failing, and that's part of the process, really anything that you're trying to learn. So I've been trying to play guitar more in the last year and a half or so. And there's no shortcuts. Like the people that are really good, there's like the, very rare talents out there in whatever, area. It could be athletics or music or art or writing or whatever. There's really no shortcuts. So people that are awesome painters, they probably put in like a huge amount of time doing a pretty bad job, and eventually they got better and better at it, and you can't get around it. And I think a lot of people think that you can for these, maybe step-by-step frameworks or something, but there's still maybe some art to it, and there's skill. That's the thing, there's skill behind it. So you have to put in the reps, you have to go through and see like the correct way, the wrong way to do things, and develop some intuition. So really, there's not really any shortcuts. Like I think I probably got lucky early on with a couple of decisions that I made, but I also put in a shitload of time, and I worked really hard in certain areas. So I'm not sure if I answered your question.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You keep going.
Oh no, I don't know if I answered your question at all.
Oh, totally. That was a great answer. But so how many months? So you left the job. You didn't like that job. I remember hearing you talk about that. You left it before you had full-time income, or?
Correct. Yeah. So I got laid off, but I was.
Oh, you got laid off. Okay.
Yeah.
And then how many months before? I know it was a much different time with those sites, but was it like 6 months, 9 months? How much before you started actually making a significant chunk, like over $3,000 a month?
It was probably only a month or so before going past that.
I'm done.
But I kind of dabbled for about 2 years at that point.
Oh.
So I kind of knew like what I wanted to work on, and I threw a plate of spaghetti at the wall, and a handful of things stuck, too many things. And then I whittled it down to the areas that I wanted to work on. So there were some pieces that were working really well, but I didn't like that kind of work. So I was like, I got to stop that. That
What kind of
said,
work was it that you didn't like?
it was agency work. So I had
Oh,
I didn't want to work with clients and I didn't want to build
yeah.
a team. So one thing that I thought about was, if this was successful, what will it look like in 6 months, 18 months? And it was going down a great route, very profitable, but in 18 months, I would have, a team of like 10 people, and it didn't sound in a bunch of clients. And I didn't want either one of those. So I was like, I'll just get rid of that and work on something else. And then I think it was probably, say, 4 to 6 months until I had like replacement income, essentially. So,
I see. Okay.
but I had the 2-year head start of like trying a handful of different things. Like I kind of knew my way around. So, I mean, and I would say like for most people, like 2 to 3 years is probably a pretty good time frame for like earning, quote, significant amount of money, where if you told someone what you were working on and how much you were earning, they would think that that's amazing. I didn't even know you can earn money doing that. So
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe the 2 to 3 years now. And I didn't when I first started listening. I thought I'd do it in like 4 months,
Right.
give or take.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, everyone thinks they're a little bit smarter than the
I
average
know.
person, but not everyone can be smarter than the average person,
No, I
right?
know. It's just so funny. It's funny to be taught that over and over in life. It's a joy. It's a joy to keep being surprised by your own,
Yeah. Arrogance or whatever.
Yes.
Well, and then, we keep doing it over and over again. Well, the good news is I am below average in most of the stuff that I'm working on. I just am persistent. So if people
You
are,
don't believe that.
well, I'm pretty sure, but I mean, there's no way to really know, but yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
fairly
true.
stubborn, and I could focus really well.
Yeah.
It's a good skill. Okay. So we got to start wrapping it up here. So we'll hit a couple more of these questions. And again, we'll link up so people can read the rest of the notes here. What's your most favorite and least favorite part of the job as it currently is? Okay. So I spend a lot of time at this point podcasting and YouTube, and I interview people and talk to them, and I really enjoy it. So like this kind of interview is really fun. I have another show called Mile High Fi. It's personal finance and financial independence. It's a whole other set of people, and different ideas. So it's pretty fun. Usually, I'm catching people in a good mood, like they want to have a good conversation, and it's been super fun over the last few years doing that.
Oh, nice.
As far as the least favorite, there's a couple pieces that I don't like as much. So I would say dealing with like just random email pitches is slightly annoying. And I've gone on a rant, so I'll keep it super brief, but it's a good sign, right? It's a good sign that people are like, hey, I want to work with you in some capacity. So it means I'm reaching people. The more annoying part is these companies and marketers are typically using automated software, and either they're using it wrong or the software has a bug. So like if I reply back and I say, I'm interested or I'm not interested, they don't get the reply. So they'll keep sending reminder emails every 2 days or whatever they've set it to. And this is it's very it's just annoying. So I just mark them as spam. But
it sounds like such a rookie error. I'm surprised that they would do that.
Big companies are fucking this up. It is absolutely amazing.
Really?
So but again, it actually means I'm doing something where people are listening and they like want to get in front of the audience and such, but that's super fun. The other part is, I am in this make money online area. So like there's some, scammy people out there, and I try to stay on the good side of it. And I think through like the large volume of content that I've put out there, like that does come through. But at the same time, it is something that I have to manage and work on. And that also means like some of the audience, particularly on the YouTube side, they are not people that I want to talk to or work with or to even be in my audience. And that's a little bit weird, but yeah, there's like a handful of people where they're just, they have like different values and things it's just the wrong audience for me. And hopefully like they are turned off by whatever I'm talking about. And then they find whoever is a good match for them. And it's totally fine. Like I'd rather them follow someone that like has the content that they want to absorb and all that.
That's interesting. I would never have thought of that ever, but it makes sense. But what fraction would you say of your audience, like I'm sure you don't know how big your audience actually is, but what fraction would you say are these people who are like, yeah, man, tell me I'm going to get that $1 million in 2 months or whatever? I
think, you know what, it's probably pretty small. I would say like under 10%, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think it is mostly on the YouTube side, just from the algorithm and stuff like that. Some weird stuff happens that, you don't intend. The good part is if they don't like it and I'm like rude to them on a live stream or something, like they just don't come back, which is like, that's what should happen. So, I mean, I don't try to annoy people, but if I give like just a quick, unhelpful answer.
Doug is a badass. He's a badass. He looks like a peaceful, smart dude, but he's actually a badass.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, as we wrap up here, where can people find you, Nicole?
You can look on my website, which is basically me journaling this whole experience, and it's Helpful Content Bites. I thought that was so clever. .com. Yeah. Helpful Content Bites. And then can I plug my son's stuff too?
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay. My middle son is 18 and his name is Finn. He goes by Big Finny. He's living in LA and he's a recording artist and he's been a brilliant little soul since day one. So he's been on his own recording, just, doing the hard stuff of building a career. So check him out on Spotify, Big Finny.
Cool. And we'll link up for all your stuff, Nicole. Really appreciate you taking the time today. And looking forward to hearing from you soon and, whatever it is you're working on.
Thanks so much, Doug. It was a lot of fun.